Would like to wish everyone a happy Friday. Have found some new things down here in Antarctica I'd like to share with you guys. It's in an area that I haven't explored much before, but there are some indicators that there's something down in this region that more than likely is a combination of hand of man and hand of perhaps ancient man. But real quick, what we're going to do is cover something that we covered, I can't remember whether it was yesterday or the day before, it kind of all runs together. This very long series of posts, for lack of a better description, that we had found runs 422 miles, correlates to 680 kilometers. Each one of these posts is 1 kilometer apart. I think I found what this is, and it's nothing too overly conspiratorial. This looks like the groundwork layings for what they call the Antarctic Ice Road. It's a project that hasn't been completed, and it's one of those things where a lot of countries are involved and they can't get on the same sheet of music. But this article from, let's see, what is this? Siteselection.com. I'll link it. SS Insider Snapshot, 2004 article about the USA Science Highway. If you go down here, second paragraph right next to the picture of Sir Edmund Hillary, it says here about stretching from October 1 to February 25 of, I believe this would be 2003. The austral summer is the only Antarctic season in which construction is possible. By the time the team stopped work at the end of the second 100 days of work in late January of 2004, they'd completed 425 miles, 680 kilometers of the route. So this correlates exactly to what we found, so more than likely that is exactly what we're looking at. Is just that particular ice highway. And when you look at the map they've provided here, I'll zoom in as close as I can. It's a spitball map, but the section would be this part right here that I'm outlining, because it matches up perfectly to what we're looking at. So more than likely those are some type of guideposts, kilometer signposts for that road. It's just an amazing thing to see that you can see something so clear from the height that you can with a satellite. So anyway, but the things we did find that are a little bit more unexplained, we'll zoom out of this real quick, like I said, are in an area that I haven't really looked much at, but of course the control being, let me zoom back out here, that when we find all of these, what I have labeled HC, hidden corners for just lack of a better term, there's always something with them. And to give you guys an example of how different things are down here than anywhere else, I had mentioned before I went up to Greenland. I found one of these hidden corner structures up there, just one. And only one thing near it, even remotely suspicious. We'll do it in another video, and it's not even really suspicious. It's just an odd angle of what they're looking at. It basically makes the this hole in the ice up there look like there's a whale in it. So, and it could very well be. I mean, nothing conspiratorial about that. So, but down here, very, very strange things. One of the things that I always like to do, and I've shown you this before, is to change the perspective, because it really does make a big difference. I know it's hard to do this when you don't have a desktop computer or a laptop computer. Doing this on a phone is probably nearly impossible, or even a tablet. But when you come in as if you were like in a plane making a landing, you know, things start to really stick out. And you can start to see very, very different views of things. And some things just don't appear unless you look at it this way. Here, of course, is the most recent HC structure that I've found. And it's right here, where we have high res butting up right next to low res. And of course, we always have, and I'll put this up here in the corner, the time slider, how it changes depending on perspective and year. So without any further ado, where to start? This might be the closest conglomeration of these that I have ever seen. And that's why I labeled them all with one pin. it's clearly a structure they're hiding. Because you see the steps here? I can't imagine why each one of these has a hidden corner. That this is not some kind of a structure. Because you have 3 different levels of res here, all in one area. And then over here, and you always, strangely enough, find them in straight lines. We see the same thing. There's a peninsula in this region. Give me 1 second. It's there we go. That isn't readily apparent from above. That if there were an ancient civilization here, would have more than likely been part of some type of a port. And see, here's the amazing part of this. I have this labeled, and I forgot I had the time slider back in 2010. Looking at that high sideway we were just talking about. So we'll go forward. 12. And in 2012, what we clearly see here is 2 individuals and what looks like a giant tracked vehicle. Now, there is human activity down here. That's not in and of itself anything suspicious, but where they are versus anything else is they are a long way away from anything that's actually reported that you could find. So clearly they must be closer to something that is unreported that they don't want you to know about. Now over here, we'll do this one first. This is one you can only see happen if you're looking at it from a steep angle and are using the time slider. Alright, so we're in 2012 right now, and it doesn't look like anything's here, except for this strange greenish glow. Now there's 13, 14, 15. Perfectly rectangular, out of nowhere. I'll back up because I didn't have that the right place. Okay, there's 14. You see how it's just this jumbled mess of nothing really there? 13. And even in 2012, we see some very odd changes going through here. But then all of a sudden in 2015, this perfect rectangular structure appears. And stays there 2016. Now over here, a lot of folks have said, you know, you're just seeing natural stuff. And there is all sorts of natural stuff down here. One of the examples I'd like to give is, people have talked about if something would have ever happened to the Hoover Dam. Let's say, you know, there's a bomb or some terrorist attack or something, earthquake, and the thing collapses. Now imagine if nobody ever bothered to rebuild it, what it would look like 300 years from now, 400 years from now. There would be just giant chunks of concrete all downstream from that, even if water was still there. And people could, and it would likely be submerged to some extent. Silt would have been deposited over it. And anyone who would make the allegation that this was part of this giant, enormous structure would probably be laughed at. So what I've done here is, this is what initially looks like just somebody cut a path right through this thing, but this could be just a jagged break right here in a piece of ice. I agree. Now, the reason I said that is what I'm going to show you next. This is not a jagged break. This is a nice, clean cut. and what looks like there's a strange, I don't know, weak point or something that was by it. This looks like this could have been part of a structure. Anybody out there who's ever worked with wood probably recognizes something exactly like this. And over here, and we've seen this structure so many times that it's hard for me to say that it's a coincidence. This oval shape that for some reason right through the middle has a perfect straight line cut band through it. I don't know what it is, but it repeats this almost exact same shape with this banding over it, where it's just so unbelievably neat and almost identical in every structure. And you can find that in some older Antarctica videos I've done. It just seems like what we're looking at might be evidence of the destruction of something that at one time was part of a building. And especially when you look at stuff like this, where it's just perfect cuts. And yeah, there's some jagged sides to it, but triangles like this are not really all that common in nature. Time and wind and rain and stuff has a way of rounding everything out, and you do see a lot of that down here. That's why the things like this stick out like a sore thumb. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is, this is what I call a perspective hide. All right, so you look here, you're like, what in the world? There's nothing out here, it's just ice. Now, I'm going to back up, angle up the camera. Do you see it? Under the water down there, there is something very, very different. It's almost diamond-shaped, but you only can see it from a very steep angle from a distance. That's about as good as I'm going to get it to show up. It's very, very distinct from everything around it. And what we're looking at here, this area, clearly, if in antiquity, would have been a port. Because there's things that just seem like they were put there for a reason. Like, for example, let's take this line right here, this straight line of ice. And let's go back through time. 15. 14. 13. 12. You notice how it seems like this was a permanent structure? This up here maintains a perfect rectangular shape to it. This line stays straight. This almost looks like when we go up to Mayport here in Florida, where they have the ships docked. This, honest to God, looks like where they would have maybe docked a very large ship. And you've got this pathway around to it. And that just might have been a very, very large ocean-going vessel that needed deeper water. And we just could be looking at a deep water port. (2010), 2009, it just doesn't change shape. This really looks like it is, and if you look at the shape here, anybody who's been to large port areas or large port cities would recognize this right away. And I think this might be something that would be a big reason that people would want to come down here and explore. But when you started to have a lot of people coming to the continent, there might be other things down there that certain powers that be don't want you to see. And I think that would be the big problem. It's not that necessarily they are so much worried about archaeologists going down here and finding these things. It's what might be revealed that could cause problems. So anyway, just wanted to share this with you and show you guys that there is very clear evidence that there was a very large ocean-going, perhaps space-going, um, or just flight, perhaps, civilization down here. And while I know a lot of you don't trust Google, there are human beings that, run these things, and there are things that can be missed. And like I said, a lot of the things that I have found require being at very close zoom rates with only certain years and certain angles. And they just might have missed them. It just might be as simple as that. They just didn't think it would show up. Someone probably said, they would have to be looking specifically here to find this. So, anyway, we will leave it there. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.